every single dog is assigned an adoption coordinator. When you get confirmation about which dog you're going to be fostering, you will receive an email from the foster placement info email coordinators telling you who your adoption coordinator is. At that point, it's really great to just contact them, introduce yourself, maybe talk about what kind of home would be best for this dog so that you're both on the same page. When a application comes in, the adoption coordinator will send it to you and they'll ask you what you think about it. And if you feel like it's going to be a good match, they're going to ask you to call the person and talk to them on the phone. Now, keep in mind that if you've been volunteering for less than 6 months, we want you to become acquainted with the process and acquainted with what's expected in an application. And so for anyone that's within 6 month period, the adoption coordinator will have more weight in how a decision is made, what applications are considered, and that way you can learn. And so this is just a way to just make sure that you are being trained properly so that you're representing Paws New England in the right way and you're making good choices for your foster dog. So this is a good thing. After 6 months, once you've had a few adoptions and you've experienced that, then adoption coordinators and fosters essentially work as a team. And so as a team, you make decisions related to the application. You determine whether you want to go forward or not go forward, and you communicate together and pass ideas off of each other, and ultimately come to an agreement. If you're having trouble coming to an agreement, that's when you may involve someone else from Paws New England. Maybe the leadership team may get involved at that point, and we can address what is the discrepancy. Why are these two people not being able to come to an agreement on this? And normally the foster does have a lot of say as to where the foster dog goes because they know the dog better than anyone. That said, we can't have people take that to their advantage. So in other words, although we do rely on your good judgment and for you to be responsible in choosing the right home for your dog and that you know the dog better than anyone, we also want to make sure that you're making a good match based on what's in the best interest of the dog and not based on, because you know the applicant. Perhaps the applicant is a family or friend. And while we would love to adopt to a family or friend of yours, we want to make sure that they are, in fact, a good match for the dog. So they will be considered, but they have to be considered in the fairness of the totality of what is actually in the best interest of the dog. If you have multiple applications come in, we ask that you process one at a time. It's just really unfair if you process multiple applications at a time and then have to let people down. We want to be very gentle with our applicants. People get attached to dogs very quickly, and so it's a good idea to pick an application that you feel is your first choice, your second choice, your third choice. Process your first choice first. If it ends up not going through, then you contact your second choice. Once you are sent the application originally, you're going to be asked to review it and then to contact the applicant and to have a conversation with them. This conversation is a casual conversation just to see why are they applying for this dog? What are their intentions for this dog? What kind of dog are they looking to adopt? And to make sure that the dog they chose is the dog you have. If you feel like after this casual conversation with them, you feel like it's a good match and you want to go forward, then you will let your adoption coordinator know, and then she will then process the application. By processing it, she will conduct an interview with the applicant and then do reference checks. And these reference checks are very thorough. They're going to check if they own their own home, if they rent, if they own a condo. We'll check, rules and regulations related to apartments, condos, breed restrictions, weight restrictions on these things. A vet reference check, making sure that they have been diligent in vetting the animals that they've had in the last 10 years. They're going to do personal reference checks. What kind of home do they live in? Checking Google Maps, checking Zillow. Once those checks have all been done, the coordinator will then send the application back to you, and then you will review it and make sure that you're comfortable with it. If there are any red flags at this point, you want to address them. You don't want to move on to the next step before you address the ones that that are pending. So everything is this process, right? So you don't want to move on to the next step without doing a vet reference. The vet reference, all the references have to be done, the interview has to be done, all of that needs to be completed before you would go on to the home visit, for instance. The final stages are a home visit and a meet and greet. We prefer that you do the home visit first because we would like the person to be qualified to adopt completely and pass all the areas that we're setting up, all these checks that we're setting up before the meet and greet. When people meet the dog, they fall in love, especially if kids are involved. It gets really messy when they meet them and then we find out later that they weren't in fact qualified, that a red flag came up and they're not a good fit for this dog, and now you have to take it away from them. And so it's just not fair to them. So we do the home visit first and then the meet and greet. In some cases, a home visit and meet and greet may be done at the same time. If you want to do the home visit and meet and greet yourself, you can do that. Just communicate what you'd like to do with your adoption coordinator, and then she will guide you and arrange it. So the home visit comes first. You get a report of it. If it went well, then you would move on to the meet and greet. Once the meet and greet is completed and you feel like it's a good fit, then you are ready to approve that application. At this point, if you've done the process correctly and you've addressed anything that came up in order, by the time the meet and greet goes well, there should be nothing pending that would prevent you from approving this application. This application at this point should be approved, and that process should be completed. So definitely read through all this and contact me with any questions if you have any concerns, or you can contact your adoption coordinator. Adopting your foster dog, this is one area that we always have to talk about, because a lot of fosters come on board with the intention of sort of finding a dog for themselves, and so they don't make that very clear to us in the beginning, and then we find out later that their intention was really just to find a dog for themselves, and then they adopt their first foster dog and they never foster for us again. Because this has happened so frequently, we've had to put this rule in place. So when you come on as a foster, you must actively foster for at least 6 months or foster at least 6 dogs before foster failing and adopting. We don't mind if a foster adopts their foster dog, but we want you to have the fostering experience first before you decide on settling on a dog to adopt. And that's just for your benefit and for the organization and all our hard work in training you to be a foster. If your intention was to adopt in the first place, then you should have just submitted an adoption application. So fostering is never about trial, having trials with different dogs and serving your own purposes. It's really about saving dogs, saving lives, and finding them really good homes and doing it again and again. Most of us have fallen in love with our first foster, and most of us have wanted to adopt, and we've resisted that urge because deep down we know that the reason we're doing this is because we want to help save lives, and we need fosters to do that. We need them to put their own needs aside for a little while and focus on the needs of the dog, find them a great home, and then do it again. So the more you can experience that, the more I think that will resonate with you, and it'll become a reality where you really see your impact. And then as time goes on, excuse me, and sorry about that. But as time goes on, and you decide you fall in love with a dog, and you've decided, no, this one I really want to keep, and there's no applications pending, because that's a big one. We want to make sure that there are no applications in queue pending that are good, viable applications. If that's the case, then we want to be fair. We want to be able to consider these applicants and make sure we're making a good choice for the dog. Again, what's in the best interest of the dog. But if there are no applications pending, nothing's in queue, and you want to adopt, by all means, send a note to your adoption coordinator and she'll make that happen. Returns are a reality of rescue. No matter how often we strive to make a good choice for the dog, we have checked off all our boxes, We've really considered all areas of this adoption, and we feel like this is going to really succeed. Sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes dogs get returned. If that happens, contact your adoption coordinator and they will contact the behavior team to get that process started. In some cases, we would love for you to take your dog back if that's possible, but if not, then we will find another foster for the dog. And finally, this is completed orientation. If you have any questions, please contact me. Before you go out and make a decision that you're not sure of, you're not sure if it aligns with what you've learned in as the process and procedures of the manual, then contact me. You're better off like being involved with the community, getting to know how things work, how things operate, than trying to make decisions on your own. So your next steps are again, you've read the manual, you've watched the orientation video. Confirm with me via email that you've done those two things, sign the electronic foster agreement, and then submit the foster request form. I thank you so much for coming on board, and I wish you an amazing experience.